I'll hopefully see some people coming in quite quickly, actually. So yeah, we'll have some people in. Welcome, people. Happy Thursday. How's it going in the world of Berachain?
How do we check how many people are in here? I feel like
I can see it on my counter. I can see there's 12 people in already. 16 people now. 21. Yeah, it's going up. Welcome, people. How's it going, everyone? We'll kick things off properly in a few minutes. Once we get people in the stream, I think yeah, good to have all of you here. We're going to be talking a lot about our favorite thing in the world, Berachain. So yeah, it's going to be awesome. I can see we've got AZ in the house. We've got Napzilla in the house. So nice to have you guys. We'll definitely have a lot of people in this one, I'm sure, because we're going to break down, I think, the talk of the town, aren't we? We're gonna talk about Boyco and everything that you need to know about what's going on with these different vaults and some of our favorite strategies and all kinds of things. So yeah, it looks like Kevin, a lot of people from your following are kind of tuning in as well as well.
How do you tell? What? Bro, I feel like a grandma. What the fuck?
You are a grandma.
If it says pad, Roth. Wait, Roth is from my following, right? How do I tell who's from who's following?
To be fair, actually, I don't know. It could actually be from my following. I have no idea. But all of the OGs are here.
Yeah, I do see that. I do see that.
Dan is here.
I do see that.
Yo, what's going on, people? Okay, we got 150 people. Yeah, exactly. Oh, David is here as well. Yeah. No, I think Ruff is from Ruff comes from me. It doesn't come from you. Oh, I don't know what happened to Bob.
I'm here.
I think Kevin's rugged himself there. Everyone take a screenshot of this right now and send it to him. Look at him. Oh my gosh. Guy has one job. Just get reliable internet. Just needs reliable internet, and he's frozen. Yeah, Kevin's just falling asleep, man.
Yeah, it's okay.
Man. He needs a little more ooga in that booga. Right, I'll wait for Kevin to join back. I don't know what's happened to him. Okay, maybe he's back now.
Yeah, bro, the WeWork Wi-Fi cooked me. Not gonna lie, it's like it asked me to.
Yes. Everyone's cooking you as well. Okay, right. We've got 250 people in already. So, guys, welcome. Happy Thursday. We're going to be talking about Berachain, specifically talking about Boyco. We'll do some intros. I think everyone knows us already, but just in case you don't, my name is Waj. I think all of you have probably seen some of my videos before. I've covered Boyco quite a lot as well, and also, we're building IVX. Maybe Bob, you want to intro yourself as well quickly?
Hey guys, yes, Bob from IVX.
Short and simple, right? Short and simple. And last but not least, Kevin, you can intro yourself as well.
Yeah, Kevin from Ooga Booga. You may have seen me on the timeline bull posting Berachain, which I often do. I have a Steady Teddy's PFP with a Pikachu hat on it, so that is me. I'm known as the Pikachu of Berachain, otherwise known as Kevin or KOL, Kevin OL, whatever.
Kevin OL. Right. Okay, so right now the biggest thing in our ecosystem, for those of you who don't know, we're all building on Berachain. The biggest thing in our ecosystem right now is, of course, Berachain and setting up for mainnet. And one of the things that we've recently seen is the launch of the Boyco pre kind of mainnet program. What is Boyco? I mean, I can kind of quickly explain this before we actually go into a little bit more detail. Perhaps I can actually share my screen on something, and maybe we can kind of have a look at something together. So tell me, guys, if you can see this. I think you can.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, right. So I'm going to try and keep this pretty simple, right? But essentially, when you start up a protocol, it can be a chain, it can even be a protocol itself, right? there is a problem with actually starting up, and I've kind of put this into three different categories. We have like the cold start problem, and that is essentially without having deep liquidity, protocols and their products really fail to really showcase what they can do. Without having liquidity, you have poor UX. An example is, right, imagine Uniswap. Imagine you want to do some swaps on Uniswap, but there's no liquidity. Experience sucks, right? So there is this cold start problem where you need liquidity first, and then you can have trading volume, and then you can showcase how good the product is, right? There is this problem, and this is like one of the issues that we have with incentive structures today, where like you can launch something, but without that liquidity, it's not really going to work. I think another issue that we have when it comes to solving this startup problem with incentives anyway, is that often when we give incentives, the whales come, right? The farmers, the high net worth individuals, the VCs, the family offices, right? Those are the guys that come. They basically chuck their assets, their USDC, their ETH, their Bitcoin, and they basically get pretty much all of the rewards. Often what you find is that these guys do backdoor deals with these different protocols and chains where they either get boosted yields or they get some extra token allocation. Maybe they get some protection as well. So it's great for those guys who have this power, but for the ordinary people like you and I, we often don't have those privileges. The whale games are very prevalent in crypto, and if you're not aware, I'm telling you, it happens everywhere at the moment. And the last point that I'll just mention is that we have this kind of lack of transparency, especially when it comes to like points programs and things like that. There are multipliers that, you have things like Pendle YTs and all this kind of stuff. It actually becomes a little bit difficult to know for every kind of $1 that we're depositing, how much are we actually getting in rewards? And this is something that, of course, over the last 2-3 years, when airdrops and this kind of airdrop farming game has come to fruition, has been a little bit tricky to try and figure out. And so, what if users? Well, there's 2 points here. Users want to know what they're farming, and protocols also want to pay a fair price. They don't want to get ripped off from these whales as well, especially to ensure a long-term game. And so, what if you can kind of solve this problem? That's exactly what you can do with something like Boyco. And Boyco is essentially this platform over here, which I will see if I can share right now, that allows Berachain essentially to start up their chain. And they do this through these different vaults that they have available right now, where users can deposit assets and see exactly how much they're going to earn. And this is because we know in terms of token supply and things like that, in terms of rewards, you can see here for this vault, we're getting 1%, 1.5% of the total supply here, etc. We can kind of really figure out exactly kind of how much we're going to make. It's a fair kind of game. Whales aren't getting any preferential treatment over a small fish like me. And this is essentially used to, solve this cold start problem as well. So, yeah, that's kind of, I think, summarize what Boyco actually is and how it works right now. Maybe we can go into a little bit more details of like how it works exactly. But I think maybe first thing that we could possibly talk about is like, what are some of the rewards that we can earn? What are some of the assets that you can deposit? And what are some of the rewards? So maybe Kevin, you want to start off? Maybe then Bob afterwards, you can kind of add your takes to it as well.
Let's do it. Let me share my screen. I think it's super interesting. I think that like everyone's trying to calculate exactly how many sort of how much rewards they can get from each of the the markets out there. It's the same thing with sort of Pendle YT calculations where people are trying to make, okay, how much is this bear like reward? How much is this bear airdrop going to give me? How much are these points? How much are the Kodiak points? How much are the Godax points? If this is this FTV and this is this FTV, how much is my total yield, etc., etc. But one of the core components to the entirety of this is like how much bear was allocated to the entirety of the program, right? Originally, the pre-assumption was that 1.5% of the total supply was going to be allocated to the entirety of Boyco, but obviously when Boyco was announced, that obviously was a huge surprise for all of us, that the foundation actually allocated 2% to the entirety of Boyco. Now, whether that sort of upsize in allocation from 1.5 to 2% was a result of potentially mitigating a dilution to the external vaults of the external pre-deposit vaults, or whether that's because they wanted to surprise us with more bear allocation in the first place. Who knows? But who cares? At the end of the day, it's 0. It's like 50 bips more. Now this chart essentially is something that's been sort of sprayed around Twitter quite a lot, but it's also pretty important. Now, the essence of this chart is essentially just describing risk-reward ratio, and essentially, if you provide, provide into a market which is inherently / intrinsically more riskier, then the bearer reward / allocation which you get for that should be technically more, right? And so, not gonna lie, this naming is kind of fucked. It could have been named better, but essentially, what this means is like third party. Let's start with major. Major is like Honey, USDC, USDT, WBTC. I'm pretty sure they describe it here like this.
And wrapped ETH as well.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Carry on. Just wrapped ETH as well.
Oh yeah. Wrapped ETH, WBTC, USDT, stuff like that. And then the third party stuff is like LBTC, Stone, UniBTC, etc., other things like this. And then hybrid is obviously like a combination of both. If we look at the top row here, we can see single-sided, which is like markets such as like lending protocols like Dolomite. Stable swap is stuff like like a uni, just like an AMM, which is like USDC and USDT on one side, and then volatile is obviously perhaps something like okay, can't think of something, maybe WBTC - Honey. That would be volatile.
Yeah.
And so you can see that the volatile pools here are rewarded from bucket 2, 45% of bearer of the 2% total allocation, 4.2x total bearer allocation rewards, right? And so this is intrinsically like the most risky sort of category. So that's why that has the most rewards. And from that, right, if we go to the Boyco UI, maybe you can bring it up here.
Yeah.
If we go up to the Boyco UI, you can then see all of the sort of different multiplier rewards. Because I saw a lot of people getting confused on Twitter. Actually, okay, what is this? What is this 1.3x? What is this 4.269x? There's no information on the UI, and admittedly, to be honest, that's really fucking confusing because there is no information on the UI, and so you have to really redirect your thoughts to this the blog with this table on it, which makes once you understand this table, everything makes a lot more sense. I think generally people have been more looking at the bearer allocation rather than the points. I think that the points themselves, they will amount to something. I think that maybe up to 30 to 40% of the total rewards that will get emitted to you from the market. But the majority of people that are like looking and sort of like trying to LP are trying to figure out, okay, how much of these bearer rewards going to be worth.
Yeah, absolutely. Bob, anything that you wanted to add on top of that?
Yeah, no comment. You can move to next topic if you want.
Yeah, so I mean, like right now we can see that there's 2.4 billion deposited in total. I think the vast majority of this is in the pre-deposit vaults, and so because if we actually look at the external vaults, you'll see that a lot of these Stakestone, EtherFi, these are all kind of third-party kind of types of assets. They're not native, right? But I believe some of the strategies that these protocols will offer will actually end up porting TVL over into the major pools, actually. So I'm expecting this to kind of really go up over time. Perhaps the third-party vaults actually this UI, perhaps it updates. And maybe this actually drops down a little bit. I think we'll certainly see this, especially as we get closer to the end. The Boyco markets end on the 3rd of February at 12 a.m. UTC. So there's only really, 2 or 3 days left before this finishes. And I think right now a lot of people are trying to figure out like which vaults are best for them. Now, if you notice, one of the vaults actually filled up very, very quickly. This was Origami's vault, which had a cap on $69 million. Maybe Kevin, or actually maybe Bob, you want to kind of talk about like this specific vault and like why did it fill up so quickly? The answer really comes from those extra rewards that they were offering, right?
Yeah, I think so. Origami offered 10% of BCAMI, right?
Yes.
And the purpose is like, this is not a risky vault. This is stable. I think this is stable swap.
Correct.
They want to farm BGT and keep BGT to Origami treasury, and in return they will give 10% away. And because like it was, I think, the most pool that was like very focused from the team itself, so they managed to fill up. Like I think they are 50% right now, right, from the total new Boyco rewards.
Yeah, correct.
Nice. What do you think about it,
Kevin? Any thoughts
on the uncapped Origami vault?
Yeah.
I think that it's great. I mean, it's expected. I mean, if you have capped versus uncapped, obviously the capped vault's going to be filling up first. I think it was great. I mean, it foamed a lot of people and it drew a lot of attention. Like people were like, oh my god, like this is filling up, but do I need to deposit now? Do I need to deposit now? I think it's really good because this topic actually relates to how Boyco is doing now. I'm seeing a lot of sort of stuff being spread around the timeline about, oh my god, the external deposit vault sucked up all of the liquidity into Boyco. Whereas in reality, like, to be truthful, I think, like, in all honesty, from the bottom of my heart, I think that people are just genuinely waiting until like the last couple days, like 1 or 2 days, until they figure out, okay, how much is this APR? Is like, because right now, if you look at APRs, it's completely skewed, right? You're seeing like 5 million% APRs. Obviously, you can't tell like what the actual APR is until like the last 1 or 2 days, until like people are actually starting to deposit. And so that's like these two combination of factors essentially basically mean that it's not a problem. Like we'll be fine on the last 1 or 2 days. We'll see a bunch of deposits coming in.
Yeah, I think so. And I guess my take is Origami giving away 10% of the supply. They really have done well in kind of capturing attention, that initial attention. But also, I guess they really wanted to make sure that they get the TVL that they need. What's really interesting is the strategy that they're using is basically a stable pool on Bex, and essentially what they're going to do is farm BGT from this. So I think Origami is going to be a really interesting player in about 3 months' time. Maybe even before that, seeing like how much BGT they can accumulate as a protocol and what they actually do with that. So I'll be very interested to see, who are Origami bribing and why are they bribing them. So yeah, the Origami DAO will definitely be a big player in the initial BGT wars, especially considering they're going to be farming with $70 million, which I think is pretty interesting. Very interesting strategy, actually. It's quite different to a lot of the other strategies as well, because, if you look at like supply USDC on Dolomite, it's quite straightforward, right? But the Origami USDC vault is actually like a kind of different strategy altogether, in the sense that it's not technically using the Origami protocol. It's using Bex and they're farming BGT with it. So I did find that quite interesting, to be honest with you. I think I'm interested to see the dynamic of where the TVL flows, especially on the last day. Kevin, you mentioned that people are probably waiting for the last 1 or 2 days. I actually think they're waiting for the last 12 hours, maybe even less, maybe the last 6 hours. And I think probably the last 2 hours are going to be the craziest thing. We should probably do a live stream covering like the last hour of Boyco before this, because I think that's when everyone, including myself, are really waiting for before I decide like which kind of vault I go for. So,
yeah. I mean, because there's no marginal actual benefit to you like depositing earlier. Like, what's the benefit for you depositing? Like, and if you're moving like tens of millions of dollars, like, if there's no benefit, fuck it, I'm waiting 2 or 3 days. Like, I mean, like, I would rather see that this front end doesn't like spaz out on me than wait 2 or 3 days than lose all of my money. You know what I mean? Because of some front end error. I think that's exactly what people are waiting for right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, oh yeah, sorry, go ahead, Bob.
Wait, what? I think only the honey jar is capped as well, right? Other than Origami.
Yes, that's correct. So the honey jar, I believe, is capped at $42 million, I believe, and we're pretty much halfway filled on this one. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting to see who's capped, to see how they are performing from now.
And this is also going to be a similar kind of strategy, as far as I'm aware, USDC honey liquidity, if I'm not mistaken. But in terms of the actual rewards, obviously you get the bearer rewards, but there is these hen low points as well. Has anyone kind of done any maths to try and figure out like the value of these hen low points and kind of what that will?
I think Eric and Onik had a really, really, really good thread on this. I don't remember exactly what the calculation was, but it's bullish. It's bullish. That's for sure.
Okay. I won't delete him just yet, but I think you can go and follow Eric and kind of have a read of that for yourself. What about in terms of like some of the? So we looked at the two capped vaults per se, but what about like the other protocols as well? Let's say maybe Kodiak versus Dolomite. How have you kind of decided based on what you'd kind of go for there if you were going to choose one of them?
I mean, for me, it's just based on my usual strategy. Like, I mean, I'm pretty risk off. I never really do like a lot of risk on stuff with stables because they're, in my opinion, they're like stable for a reason. And so for me, most of my sort of capital has gone into the safer stuff, so single-sided stuff, so Dolomite, stuff that isn't going to be susceptible to potential impermanent loss and stuff like this. Impermanent loss coming obviously from the AMMs on if you provide like a USDC and USDT, if one of them goes slightly deviation, makes a slight deviation, then you'll obviously lose money.
Fair enough, Bob. Any comments that you have there in terms of like what strategy works for you?
Yeah, I think origami was a bit interesting. I'm looking into D2 finance because they will have some of this capital being traded on IVX, so I'm supporting that as well.
So maybe we can kind of have a look at the D2. Let me just type that in. So the strategy I'm assuming you're referring to is the Degen Berachain strategy. And I think this is actually a really interesting strategy because it's very, very, very different to a lot of the others as well that we have. I believe, as far as I'm aware, the D2 finance strategies are the only strategies that actually give you exposure to Bera, whereas the others are Bitcoin or ETH or stables. They've kind of had a nice little way of kind of getting getting exposure to Bera, but like not directly, if that makes sense. So what happens is in this vault, users will deposit stable coins. And what's also interesting as well is if you look at the lockup period for a lot of the other vaults, they're 3 months. This one's only 30 days. So I think for some of you that might want to be a little bit more liquid, this one might be more interesting. But what's interesting is this strategy actually uses both of our protocols. It uses Ooga Booga and it uses IVX. What they'll do is they will TWAP into Bera through Ooga Booga's aggregator on the first 3 days, try and get an average price. And then they will try to create some sort of pseudo-structured product around this, where they will try to give you 1 to 3x leverage upside to Bera, but also kind of protecting yourself by using option strategies. And so this is why they're going to end up using IVX. They will be doing some selling strategies to help with the theta exposure, especially in the last few days of this strategy where the theta decay can be a little bit higher. And so, yeah, I think this one's an interesting strategy for getting exposure to Bera. Now, of course, this one, therefore, also is probably one of the more risky ones. I mean, it even says it in the name, right? It's got Degen in the name. But I did find it interesting that, like, this is a little bit different to kind of your traditional like spot exposure to Bera or like your vanilla leverage kind of exposure. Essentially, if you think the price of Bera is going to be higher in 30 days time, then it will be on day 1 or day 2. This one might be interesting. If you want kind of leverage exposure to Bera, not just spot exposure, this one will be interesting. And I think the last thing is like, if you want leverage exposure, but you don't want to have that liquidation risk, then this one will be interesting. So if it ticks those 3 boxes and you're willing to take the risk, because of course the price could definitely go down. We've seen time and time again where protocols launch up or chains launch at pretty high valuations and maybe dip down a little bit before they go up later. Maybe this one could be interesting for you. So yeah, I think that's an interesting one to comment on, Bob. Did you guys have any thoughts on it, by the way, as well?
Well, I think D2 is interesting because it's not like specifically a DeFi primitive, right? Everyone else here is a DeFi primitive, whether that's sort of like an AMM, whether that's a lending market, whether that's being deposited into like infrared, which is doing all the stuff with IBGC. D2 is like trading, right? So I'm surprised they actually got through to Boyco, which is like congrats to them, man. I mean, like I think that's a huge W for them. And if I remember correctly, they have like already like 500k in TVL in there, right? Like what specifically is the number there? Can you check?
They actually have 3 different vaults in total, and they have 500k in one of them. Yeah. They have 300k in the other, and in the last one, in the Kodiak strategy, they have 100k. Yeah, they'll have almost $1 million in TVL there, which I think pretty good. And like I think part of the reason is like it's the only strategy of all of these that gives you exposure to Bera, whereas all of the rest are Bitcoin ETH stable essentially. So I kind of did like that one.
Yeah, I'm glad they fixed the front end, by the way. You know, I was talking to the Baraboro guys the other day, and essentially what happened with the Baraboro vaults was that they were doing testing, and when they were doing testing, some of the vaults had like $12 in them because they put like $12 in the vault, and some other vaults had like $2 because they were testing with like $2. They did like 1 USDC transactions into it, and the vault with the $12 actually managed to get like 500K in TVL. That Baraboro vault got 500K in TVL. Or was it 300K in TVL?
Oh my gosh.
$2 remained at $2 because nobody fucking realized there was another button at the bottom right, and apparently there was another button that allowed people to go to the next page and then the next page to see the other vaults.
Did they get fixed in the end?
They fixed that now. They fixed that now, but I just find it funny how like during testing, just because they had $10 worth of $10 worth more of testing tokens in the vault, they were able to achieve like 300K worth of TVL. It's pretty interesting. I think there's like pretty interesting like articles on like page one psychology, right? It's the same with like delegation and Arbitrum DAO, and I expect it's probably going to be the same thing in the Berachain sort of governance system, right? No one clicks past page one. Like once you're on page one, you don't move. Like same with like delegation for validators on Cosmos POS chains, right? Like if there's like 5 pages, right? You only click on like the first page, and you just like if you don't care, like you just randomly click, and then you just like you click on one of the validators on the first page. Which is interesting in my opinion. Like, is it?
Bearers can't read, man.
Yeah, bearers can't read. Is it monopolistic? Not sure, but it's an interesting psychological concept.
I think it's probably just a little bit of the kind of attention economy that we live in right now. People just don't have the attention span to read anything, to watch anything long form. It's just everything needs to be big and bold and in as simple and as short form as possible, really. That's probably what it is. And I think like when you add like extra buttons, you're just adding extra clicks, extra fragmentation. Like, yeah, it's just makes it a little bit tricky. So yeah. I thought I'd just quickly address some questions that we have. Someone asked about the link to the Henlo thread. Find Eric on Twitter. I can't remember what his full @ is. Ericonomics or something like that. You'll be able to find it there. We also have the legendary CBB here as well, who says Boyco is a scam.
CB, I love you. CB, I love you. CB, I love you. CB, I'm only gay for you. I'm only gay for you.
And we also have D2 as well. So shout out to you guys as well. We just covered your strategy, which is of course using our protocols, Ooga Booga and IVX, as well as Baraboro and Dolomite through the Degen Beraland strategy. Awesome. What are your guys' favorite strategy at the moment, if you have one? Like, do you have like a favorite strategy for Bitcoin, a favorite strategy for ETH, a favorite strategy for USDC? Like, do you have like one that you're like really focusing on at the moment?
Well, to be honest, for me, like I personally got FOMO'd into this Origami USDC Boyco vault, right? I was looking at like 62 mil TVL, and I was like, I tweeted, I was like, oh, okay, this shit's gonna fill within the next 3 hours. I go to take a shower, I check back, it's got like 68 mil. I'm like, fuck it. I run to my laptop, bring out the ledger, start bridging and deposit. Like I just got FOMO'd into that shit. I just deposit. I even whipped up.
It felt so quick.
Yeah, it was crazy. Once it hit like 60 mil TVL, like it just went to like acceleration mode. It was crazy.
But you should print quite nicely on that over the 3 months anyway. Well, in 3 months' time, it should be nice. I mean, where else are you going to find like this level of risk and size that you can put into something and earn 50% APY on?
Yeah. No. Despite the front end having some problems, I know these guys like had like a big emphasis on security, right? So I think like security wise, like I mean, all of these guys got like multiple different audits. I know like a lot of people spend like close to like $1 million worth on audits. It's crazy. So I think that it's very secure. Like I put my money where my mouth is. Like I deposited a certain amount of capital into the Origami USDC vault.
Fair enough. Bob, anything that you're looking at, like even maybe some of the ETH or Bitcoin strategies, anything that you kind of caught your attention there?
Yeah, I'm trying to see how to farm like infrared and Kodiak at the same time. So this will be like my last day dig. There is 2 pools I like, so I'm waiting a bit to see it.
So there's this one, right? Infrared Kodiak wrapped ETH Bera ETH LP, which is actually using Dinero. So you'll be able to get some Dinero tokens as well on top of that, but also get exposure to infrared and Kodiak as well. So yeah, this one is an interesting one. Obviously, APR right now is absurd, but I'm guessing that this is because it's Is this a major pool, right? Because it's wrapped ETH or hybrid pool. So yeah, fine. This one will be interesting. Let's see how diluted it gets. It's only got 2 million in TVL right now, 2.5 million, which is kind of low. Let's see. I guess the other infrared and Kodiak one is this wrapped ETH honey volatile pool. So you're getting the 4.2x boost on this one.
Yes, exactly.
So that one's quite cool as well. What one that I find really interesting is this one. So this one is infrared Kodiak BTC ETH, and the reason why I find it interesting is because, okay, ETH is not the most correlated to Bitcoin, but at least it's a little bit correlated. And so over 3 months, I mean, how much impermanent loss are you going to get on something like this? I don't know if it'll be that much, but of course you're getting a 4.2x multiplier here. So this one is like a really, really interesting one to me. I don't know if you've had a look at like how you're going to play like the multiplier boosts at all. And have you guys had any thoughts there?
Whatever one's highest, to be honest. But with the WBTC, with the BTC WETH LP one, it's actually very interesting how they've managed to figure out to allow people to deposit UniV2 positions. Obviously, UniV3 is represented in ERC721s, which is NFTs. But UniV2 is represented in ERC20, so it's works functionally and mechanically the same as any other deposit. So it's really interesting how, like, if you were originally already an LP on Uniswap on Ethereum, the WBTC, WETH, this is probably like imagine someone walked up to your house, rang your doorbell, and said $100 million in cash, free. You don't have to do shit, right? I think this is the equivalent, because literally, if you're already an LP in Uniswap Ethereum and you're already holding the LP tokens and you're already taking on the impermanent loss because you don't care, like, this is just free money. Like, this is just like, you just chuck this in here and you don't do shit, and it's just free. It's the freest thing.
Yeah, it makes sense. And you're getting exposure to infrared, Kodiak, and of course the juicy Bera APR as well, which at the moment, like 200% APY for this, like not bad at all, not bad. What's interesting is you said you're going to go for the highest multiplier. Kevin, you actually went for the lowest one with your Origami Vault.
Well, that's the power of FOMO, right?
What other like 4.2x multiplier ones have we got? Let me see if I can find any. Is there a way that I can filter this, by the way? Oh, and by the way, that 200% APY that I was referring to, that's with a 2 billion FTV. I mean, if we actually make this 10 billion, then this will obviously 5x. So it's going to be over 1,000% APR, which is nice.
Problem is, Waj, like the points, how are they calculating the points, Are you getting this APR without the points?
So this is excluding the points. This is just Bera. Like, the points are on top. So it's actually even higher than that.
Interesting.
What's your FTV for the Bera calculation set out right now? Is it default 2 bill right now?
Yeah, so it has been 2 bill. I've just changed it now to 10 bill. So that's why all of the, it said 50% before for you on your Origami Vault. Now it's 265. So I've just changed it to 10 bill now. So yeah, the APRs are going to look pretty wild now.
I think you can change, like, you can put like FTV presumptions for the points as well, right? If you go market specific, and then that will be factored into the APR. Is that correct?
I'm not entirely sure about that, but we can try it right now, actually. So what should we try? Maybe we should try like a random infrared pool or Kodiak pool. Let's just I'll just click this one. Let's see. This is a Kodiak MIM honey, so stablecoin pool. If I change the APY calculator,
just put it to be massive. Put like 2 zeros next to it. Put 2 more zeros and you'll see. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at the price per point that we're gonna get.
Yeah.
But if I change this now, does the APY change for me? I think. Oh yeah, here we go.
Okay, so it is factored into it. Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. Okay, so this is like one of the benefits of like playing around with the calculators like this, is that you can firstly, they tell you the total number of points on Boyco, which I think is really, really handy. And then you can kind of just figure out like what you think like this will be. We know that Kodiak will be giving 3% of their supply away. So you can do some maths. If the supply is 3%, what is the FTV going to be? What is 3% of that? Put in your numbers and play around with it. Obviously everyone's numbers are going to be different. Everyone's estimate will be a little bit different. But that's like the great thing about having calculators like this. Some people will think, oh yeah, 2 bill is fair. Some people might think 5 bill. Some people might, I've had some people go as far as saying, it's going to be 50 billion. And if that's the case, I'll be a very, very happy man. But that's like the great thing about it. Like you can just like play around with the numbers and they'll just change accordingly for you as well, which I think is really nice. 50 billion, 90,000% APR. Not too bad, right?
That's not too bad, G. Not too bad.
Not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. Okay. Next thing that I thought we'll talk about is maybe if I just stop sharing for a second, maybe I can kind of showcase the Dune dashboard and see kind of some analysis of like what's been deposited so far. Let me just refresh this. So we have over 2 billion, 2.2, 2.3 billion deposited, 153,000 users, which is quite a lot. What's really interesting is like the distribution of these users as well. Like a lot of them came from the external vaults, that got announced back in December, around Christmas time. 120,000 in Stakestone and like 30,000 in Lombard. Whereas like you compare that to like some of the more recent ones like Dinero, D2 and Solve, etc. Much like quite a significant difference there. Any thoughts on like why you think that's happened, or like why, like how you think this will change in the next few days?
Yeah, I think it was just primarily. Well, first of all, I think there's two separate different THJ dunes. One for the Boyco markets and one for the external. One for external vaults and one for the native vaults. I think this one's the external one.
Yeah, correct.
Aside from that, I think that first mover advantage was a huge thing. I mean, you saw how everyone went. Like everyone was crazy after they saw like at the 69th hour of Berachain, everyone saw like, oh shit, like I can actually deposit something now. I can actually use this chain. I can actually like put real money into it, apart from like buy arbitrary NFTs, right? Thank you. There's a top tier content. Yes, 50 bill. I agree. Whereas, honestly, I think the dry powder concept here is viable. I think it is viable. I think that after Lombard launched their vault, after the Stakestone launched their vault, it's slowly sort of filtered off as people already like chuck their dry powder into all of these things. The problem is that sure, it was advertised as you can exit. There's going to be a Uniswap V3 LP, but we all know what's happening with the Berachain Worth thing. Yes, quote unquote, it's a short-term bond, however the foundation wants to call it. But realistically, not to bear post my own bags, but realistically, it was pretty much falsely advertised, right? Not to bear post my own bags. That's just purely my own opinion. But so people can't exit these vaults anymore. So therefore, like dry powder was like is lost. And so like the vaults that launched later on, such as like Vaultcraft and Dinero, were able to garner significantly less liquidity than the vaults that were launched first.
Fine. Yeah, I hear your point there. I do also think that in general there is a lot of dry powder waiting for the last 12 hours, and then also a lot of dry powder just waiting for mainnet. A lot of people don't actually want to bid anything to do with ETH or Bitcoin or stables. They want to bid Bearer on mainnet. They want to bid all of the ecosystem tokens that are going to be coming out. So I think there's a lot of sideline capital waiting for that. There's going to be a lot of launches on mainnet, and people need money to kind of ape those. If you want to ape anything on Ramen, or you want to buy Yeet, or even Bearer itself, maybe IBGT, all of these other assets, like people need money for that as well. So whilst we've got billions coming in the form of BTC, ETH, and stables, I think lots of people are waiting for that, really, especially as we're kind of in a proper bull market as well now.
So Migs in the chat wants to know what are your thoughts on the Dinero vault? I heard them on a space yesterday and would like to everyone's thoughts if possible. I'll start with my thoughts first. I think that Dinero is part of the quote unquote cabal of the Berachain cabal. So all redacted Dinero, Y2K, whatever, and Berachain. I think that's the cabal. So I definitely think it's going to do well. What's your opinion?
I want to see, first of all, how many Dinero vaults have we got actually?
I think it's just one, Dinero with concrete, right?
No, there's quite a few, I'm pretty sure, because there's one on Berachain. There's a So there's this one on Berachain, which is giving what 10,000 points per week. I haven't had the time to look into how many these points equate. I believe it's just $1. So I believe, as far as I'm aware, 10,000 points per week is like is either one token or it's either like $10,000 worth of Dinero. I'm not sure. I think.
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether Migs was talking about the Boyco Dinero Vault or the external concrete deposit Dinero Vault. Yeah.
Maybe Migs, if you want to clarify that will help. But I think in general, Dinero's definitely got some ties to Berachain. Does that result in anything? I'm not too sure, but I'm more focused on like which assets are giving the highest yield at the moment. I think one thing that will be interesting is, of course, through BeraETH, you're probably going to have the highest actual native yield ETH product when it comes to like on-chain later. But like right now, we have all of these extra incentives and things flowing around right now. It's a bit difficult to kind of pick between them. You know, do you pick Berastone? Do you pick BeraETH? Do you pick wrapped ETH itself? Do you pick Etherfi's ETH derivative? They all have really, really high yields, so I don't think the difference between them is that much. But I'm a big fan of Dinero's 2-token model, and I think the way that it earns yield through a monetary premium is really clever. So I think when it comes to on mainnet, I think eventually in due time, once all of these incentives die down, I'm pretty sure that BeraETH will probably become like the main ETH asset on Berachain, just because it's by mechanic. But through its mechanics, has got the highest yield. Migs was referring to the concrete one, so I let me see if I can pull that up. But yeah, Bob, did you have any thoughts on Dinero, by the way?
I calculated the rewards earlier, I think, last month, and I think it will be the most rewarding ETH pool, you know?
Okay. I mean, look, I think the rewards are fairly similar across some of them. I mean, it's just a case of like the external asset. Like here, you're getting 100K in Dinero per week, which with only $4 million deposited is actually quite a lot. It is quite a lot. So that is a 12-week program, 1.2 million. Just from the Dinero incentives right now, based on what the TVL is, that's a 25% ROI, 100% APR just from this alone. Forget about the Berachain APR and some of the other APRs. This is the Dinero itself is offering right now 100% APR, which is really, really high. So I think even if this were to like 5x, that's still like a lot of rewards. So I think actually, yeah, Bob, I think you're right there. Actually, it really is a lot of rewards there. Fair enough. And I think this is purely just because the TVL is so low. I mean, if this goes to like, I don't know what the stake stone ETH level is, like 500 million, then it'll be a different story altogether. But I think because the TVL is so low right now, pretty interesting. I guess I do think that once we get closer to this 3rd of February date, this surely has to go up because yeah, those rewards are very, very high right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe we can spend the last 15 minutes or last 10 minutes talking a little quickly about like how people can track these deposits if they wanted to track like these sort of set of the on-chain tools that they can use. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up actually. I was just going to say like you've been tracking a lot of the different deposits and highlighting them on Twitter. So maybe sharing your insights there and like what alpha you can kind of extract from that as well.
Yeah, sure. Let me I will share my screen once I find this.
By the way, we've got 1,500 people like watching this right now, which is pretty awesome.
Wow, that's really good. So let me just I will walk everyone through how to check deposits on specifically for Boyco. The process to check for the external deposits is actually much easier just because Boyco actually does some weird routing mechanisms with weird routing mechanisms where the flow of funds passes through something called the Wayroll wallet first, which was developed by Enzo. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, cool.
Yep.
Cool. So essentially, this is the contract address. This is where all of the deposits of all of the funds of like everything in Boyco is basically accruing to. 0x38, this contract here, and this is known as the quote unquote deposit locker, as you can see here, and it's like verified contract, etc. This is what's developed by the Boyco team. And what you can do is you can see that a lot of these like contract addresses themselves are depositing into the vault itself. But obviously, not everyone is using like a Gnosis safe or whatever it is, right? But in fact, these are the Wayroll wallets, I believe, right? So it's not actually directly the user. So it's actually very hard for someone like just looking at Etherscan to see exactly who is depositing it. But what we can do is we can paste this into like a tool like Arkham, right? And then we can maybe specifically more see like a bit more clearly what's going on here. So let's say like we find like a transaction that's pretty interesting. Let's say like just now I was looking at like which whales were depositing in, and we can see that 50 minutes ago and 39 minutes ago there were like two $1 million deposits. And we can open this transaction up on the Explorer. Etherscan is better when we're looking at the transaction hash, and we can see that this RE100 is the depositor of the vault, right? You can also tell that this isn't an interaction with the Gnosis safe multi-sig, because otherwise they would have interacted with a otherwise this contract address here would be different to this contract address. But then obviously if you want to sleuth this guy, you can just easily just go you want to go Intel Arkham and then just literally just sleuth this guy, right? And you can see that you can see click open this, etc. You can paste him into DBank. You can see this guy likes to trade on Hyperliquid, etc. Whatever it is, right? But honestly, it's actually rather simple. A lot of people like sort of like oversight on exactly what like on-chain sleuthing is. But like just looking at this, you can see like exactly who's depositing in. It's pretty interesting that the large majority of the whale deposits, like especially like if we filter like 500K plus, right? It's all USDC right now. Like I don't see anything that isn't USDC or any other stable, in fact, right? We can even like interestingly, we can look at something like 250K, like that's half it again. Let's see if there's anything other than USDC. Great. Okay, we got one USDE, right? But that's still stables. Stables, USDC again, and then USDC again, right? So this
is that because all of the money basically went into the pre-deposit vaults with Stakestone and Lombard and everything like that, and no one's got any Bitcoin left, or we've all been rugged by AI coins, and now we've just been left with stable coins left.
Potentially, but something really interesting to note, right, is that the Stakestone ETH, quote unquote, like deviated from its peg. I don't know however you want to word it. I don't know what the politically sort of correct term is. I'm just going to say it depegged from its peg. It's not at $1 anymore. The Berachain worth thing. Okay, it's not at $1 anymore. It's like 0.97, right? Interestingly, that's like depegged to 0.97. But BTC, they had like a BTC pull up as well. That didn't depeg whatsoever, right? So it's actually pretty interesting. Like once you like know that fact, right, you need to like try and analyze that. So based on that fact, what is the analysis of that? The analysis is that most people that are depositing Bitcoin aren't moving their Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is quote unquote like a hodl asset. Sorry, it's like if you already have Bitcoin, you might as well deposit it, right? But people that deposited ETH, like because of, I don't know, whether that's market fluctuations or that's because they wanted to deposit in Boyco rather than the external vaults, they try to exit their positions, right?
Maybe I can pull this up on screen. Let's have a look if I can pull this up. Just for everyone to appreciate as well. Here we go. Please continue, Kevin.
No, I mean, that's basically all the narration that I wanted to say. I mean, like this, you can see that like it deviated like 0.97, like 300 bips. Is it appropriate? Probably not. The best case scenario was probably not for that to have happened. Something similar happened on Manta Chain with Stakestone asset, where it deviated to 0.2 as well. But at the end of the day, like this thing is redeemable at the end of the 3 months. Like if you just hold for 3 months, it's not a problem. I mean, you should have thought about this when you first deposited into the vault, I guess. And it's still, I think there's an interesting psychology here, right? If you deposited big, like if you deposited like 1,000 ETH or 10,000 ETH, right? You definitely would have read the terms and conditions. You definitely would have known that this scenario was possible. If you deposited like 1 ETH, 10 ETH, maybe even 15 ETH, okay, I don't care, whatever, right? But if you want to exit like 10 or 15 ETH, maybe you'll lose like 0.01 ETH. So it's really irrelevant, to be honest, if you deposit little. So I guess like the psychology and the sort of narrative and the dynamic itself matches up with the DPEG here.
I think there's a simple reason why this happened. Firstly, I think these deposit assets aren't actually supposed to be liquid, right? The whole idea is they're supposed to be locked. And so when you actually create a liquid wrapper around it, you're creating an asset that can't be withdrawn for 3 months. So it's always obviously going to trade a little bit of a discount. I think we'll see this again on Berachain mainnet as well, with certain assets that might not have withdrawals enabled or things like that as well. So I think this is like a feature, not a bug, if that makes sense. I think like it's meant to be like this. What's interesting is like the other like liquid wrapper kind of assets don't actually have that much liquidity, so people actually can't sell them, and so that's probably why they haven't depegged. If we're referring to like the Bitcoin, the Bearer Bitcoin asset. But yeah, I think it will be interesting to follow along and see kind of what happens next, I guess. But I guess you can actually get a 1.5% discount on your Bearer Stone right now if you were to buy it off the market rather than like deposit 1 ETH directly yourself.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
Yeah. So yeah, very interesting. Bob, did you have any thoughts on this as well?
No, it's actually normal, you know. I saw some people talking about like looping this. I saw you, Kevin. I think you mentioned this. So if you want to talk about this, also interesting.
Yeah, there were some people that were looping.
Well, I think actually it's interesting because the Morpho Oracle doesn't. It's not affected by the price deviation, so it's actually okay. It's actually okay. But whether if this was on another chain though, and it wasn't using Morpho and it wasn't using the Oracle, that wasn't affected by this price deviation. What would have been interesting is if you wanted to arbitrage this, you could have just manually liquidated people, right, with the Oracle, right? Sorry, with the lending market, right? And now effectively, instead of like, so if you want to liquidate someone, like you want to, let's say like I want to liquidate someone really bad, so I purposely FUD this shit on Twitter, right? I'm like, this shit needs to go to 0. This is going to below 6 feet below the ground, right? And everyone's dumping that shit. What I can do is I can jump on someone, like depending on how the lending market works, right? Liquidate their ass, take all of their collateral, and now effectively what I have is like an OTC trade for their collateral for the asset which I want. Now that compared to just buying the asset on the open market for the purpose of arbitrage, basically evades me from any sort of slippage or any sort of price impact. So I technically do get a better deal. Some side context, I guess, but I guess that's not exactly relevant here, but it's something that you can do if you really wanted it.
I'm glad that the money markets are using a different oracle. I'm guessing they're using like a normal wrapped ETH oracle, which is good. That could have got ugly. Especially if there was like unnecessary panic, which often happens in crypto, right? We see that time and time again. Okay, a couple of like last questions. I guess we're approaching the hour mark as well. I want to know, both of you, what is your total TVL prediction for the end of Boyco? Go on, Kevin, you go first, and Bob, you can. I want to hear yours after, and I'll give mine at the end.
Oh, it's a good one. I think Boyco does half of external vaults. I think I'm not pessimistic. I'm not optimistic. This is realistic. I like to be realistic. I think that if external vaults has 2 bill, I think Boyco gets 1 bill. And so we have 3 bill going into mainnet.
Also, everyone watching right now, go and drop your like prediction in the chat box as well, and we'll pull them up on screen, and we'll see who gets it closest as well, and we'll watch this one back. It's recorded, so we'll watch it back, and maybe whoever gets closest like gets a prize or something. So Kevin, you think 3 bill?
Yeah.
Bob, what do you reckon?
Between 2.75 and 3.5. Nothing.
No, come on, man. No political answers here. I need one number.
Yeah, 3.25. Because I think the real people who want to deposit big money, they deposited like earlier on Christmas. So all of the projects right now, I think they will not be able to get more than 2 billion. It's hard. It's hard.
Oh, okay. And we're seeing some people. Mig says 3.3. Castle says 3.1. David says 6.9. AZ says 4.2. Garrison says 6.9. Clearly, 4.2 is FUD. 3.31. Justin with 3.690420. I'm gonna go with about 3. I'm gonna go with 3 bill as well. I think 3 bill sounds fair. I'll undercut you slightly. I'll go 2.9 just so that in case it's any lower, I win out of us 3.
So how much on average they will get from the airdrop?
So we know that 2% of the bearer supply, which at 10 billion valuation is 200 million. At 5 billion valuation is $100 million. And then of course there's the protocol rewards from Kodiak, Infrared, Borrow, Dolomite. Then we have the asset issuer rewards, which come from Solve, Lombard, Stakestone. And then we have the infra rewards, which actually, this is an interesting point. Maybe we'll talk about this later because I think we're getting close to the hour mark now. But has anyone done any maths on how much a concrete airdrop would be, or how much Boyco's FTV would be, and how much they might give for Boyco depositors?
Not me.
Would
be interesting. Maybe it's time to do some min maths on that.
Problem is they are sharing points, but you don't know like the total supply of the point. You know, like how would you know? Like it's
so very... for the protocols, they actually tell you the total number of points on Boyco. But
really? Nice.
Yeah, on Boyco they say the total number of points. Yeah, let me quickly show you. So like this is like kind of helpful. So if I go on, maybe I'll go on a Kodiak one. Kodiak, right? Let's just click on this one. If I click on the calculator, it tells you the total number of points on Boyco is 2.55 billion.
And do we know how much Kodiak airdrop will be?
3% total supply.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, same for Dolomite as well. And I think that's one of the good things about this kind of program. Is a little bit, there's some transparency there. Like, so you can do some min maths, especially with a lot of the rewards coming from Bera as well. So yeah, we'll be pretty good. Mig says, any interest in another one of these 40 hours once APYs are updated? Would really enjoy that. 100% we'll do it. And I think I'm keen on doing one just before Boyco finishes, so we can like watch the deposits come in real time. That'll be really fun. We'll do that, Migs. Sounds good. Right, guys. Any last comments before we wrap up? We're hitting the hour mark pretty soon now as well. Bob, any last comments?
No. I think the last day will be interesting. Hopefully, we reach 4 billion. 4 billion will fuel the ecosystem very well.
Absolutely. Let's see. Kevin, any last comments before we wrap up?
Not specifically.
Perfect. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining. We'll be back again. We'll probably do some more over the weekend and as we get closer to the 3rd of Feb. So see you later, guys.